Okay, my friends, this is going to be a very interesting video. This is going to be about biology and how it relates to the Earth and geology and also the educational system. This is in England. I have a friend, Pete, that sends me pictures of they have the very, very strange formations there, and I think I know exactly what this is. And it is also biology, as is everything on Earth. Okay, you saw the picture from Pete. I believe this is the same sort of ripple structure. I believe they call them the ripples over there. And they're all over the place, which these are as well. Now, before we get into this, this is the United States, 52 million kids in the public schools and the state of education. What do we teach them? Do we teach them just to be happy and disregard the reality of things? Because I'm going to tell you right now, this is scary. It's very scary, but we somehow have to confront the reality of the world we live in. Okay, so like I said, this is kind of scary, but it's true. If something's true, you have to deal with the truth. Now, as I showed you, this is what's over there in England, and there's some really crazy stuff over there. And there's a ton of these. There's not just one little hill like this. There's a whole batch of them. They call them the ripples. Now, I showed you this. This is the same sort of structure here. I mean, what is it doing with all these little lines here? It's the same sort of thing. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, that is a lymph node. And so is the one over in England. And a lymph node is this. It's right here. All these lymph fluids flow into those little layered things. They can't see this in the actual human being, because what I'm looking at is so big you can see every little detail. Here's the best they can see, is here, right here. These are those little ripples. And there's the lymph node in the center. And the lymph fluid comes down here, and it passes through those filters, and it gets all cleaned up before it goes back into the lymph system to go back and collect up a batch more stuff. And I can prove this without a single doubt in the world. And don't forget, there's the ripples, there's the lymph node. I'm saying is the same thing. Here is that lymph node, not quite as close. And what is all this pink stuff? That is the lymph fluid, and it's going in here. All those ripples are all around here. They are literally filtration devices that filter and detoxify the stuff that's coming in. They're filters. See, filters. And what gets in here is all detoxified because of bacteria. There's bacteria living in there. Now, where did all that lymph come from? Here it is here again. This is the lymph coming in from here, feeding in through those filters. Those filters are down here, but they're so small. I mean, you can't really see them in this picture, but that is a lymph node. Now, where does that lymph come from? That's coming from venom that was attacking this particular tissue. This is the venom. You see this green and this nasty blue looking stuff? This is all lymph fluids. The lymph fluid is being dispatched, literally dispatched, to go and clean up all of that toxin. Well, that's so toxic, this particular venom, that it can't clean it up. So it's bringing it down here in the fluids, down to the lymph node, which is right here. But the lymph node cannot handle it. It can't handle it. And it's going to die. This is the lymph fluid, and that's the lymph node. This is the lymphatic system. And here it is in full scale here, coming down. And all of that lymph fluid is coming down to all of these different lymph nodes. And there's a whole ton of them. Same thing over where Pete is. He says they're all over the place. And they call them the ripples. Now, this is a different area on the same creature that is being invaded, and it's more deeply invaded, all the way down to where you're below the outer layer, and you're down into the arteries, the blood vessels, and the capillaries, and then they dump their contents into lymph nodes and veins and so forth to come back up to the heart to get recharged, and through the lymph nodes to get cleaned. So there's a couple different things going. You got the red blood is all charged up. You got all kinds of good stuff coming down, and everything grows in that red blood. But then it filters down through all the other tissues, and they suck off all of the good stuff out of it, and then they dump what's left over in here. And in here is a lot of toxins, because whatever comes down here that's toxic has to end up getting out of here. You can't leave it laying around in here. You're going to be sick. And the problem is if you don't have the bacteria, you can't break it down to get it out of there. Bacteria is the cause of literally all the issues that I can tell as far as health goes. Almost, I mean, there's other obvious things, but, the average chronic condition is caused by some form of a bacteria imbalance. Now, I have over 10 years on this, and I've been posting in academia. Look at this. I just got this a little while back. Congratulations on your 5,800th mention. Cited in a human geography paper. You ever hear anybody human geography? Well, that's it. A lot of my stuff is these are creatures that were humans that were literally miles tall. As I said, this is scary. This is not, and that one that's in the desert there is not just something laying around in the desert. It is a dragon attacking a fish. And again, I've shown this hundreds and hundreds of times. This is the dragon right here, spitting out all of this nasty stuff down onto the fish. And what I showed you with the fish, right here is all the blood vessels, which I showed you all the blood vessels coming down into the capillaries and all that stuff. And then I went over and looked over further, because this is eaten way down inside. As you can see, the venom has come down this far. All right, this is nice flesh. That's scales and all that. It's all covered up. This eaten right through like acid. Now, right at the edge, it's not quite eaten through. So you got the pinky looking stuff, but it's starting to eat through. Now over here is all those lymph nodes. You see, remember? There's where all the toxins coming down. And the lymph is trying to clean it up so it doesn't get down and kill the fish. You can't do it. So they're all dying. These are the lymph nodes, remember? And here's the lymph node, everything feeding in. It's supposed to clean it all up and then feed it back out and continue on. Well, it doesn't. It gets killed. And here's all those little layers of just, Pete calls them the ripples. You see them? There's the ripples right there. And they all have the same thing. So he's got the exact same stuff. These are all the ripples. And the next one down will have the same ripples. You see this one down here? They all have the same structure. You see, the same ripples. These are lymph nodes. This fish was being attacked. And this, now what I want to know from Pete is there any health issues in that area? Are the people healthy? Or are they sick? I don't know. If they're drinking water out of this area, I would think you're going to have some toxins in there. I don't know. These are the kind of things that nobody's ever considered before, because they never realized that biology was this big. So I guess, like I say, it's a little bit scary, but it's a little bit true too, or it's a lot true. Now, I talked about the lymph system. You see the red, you see the blue, and you see just this color here. You see these little valves? I don't know if you can. Let me home in a little closer. What happens is lymph is all of the garbage in your body. It's all the garbage gets broken down by bacteria. You don't have the bacteria, can't break it down. But it gets into this lymph system and it filters into here, into these bags, which have filters in them. And I can actually show you this from my Mudfossil research. I can show you these bags, these filters, and how the lymph comes in, and I can show you actual lymph nodes being overwhelmed and dying. Now, the lymph comes in and then it's discharged back out. It's just a continuous loop. It goes through your body just like your blood does. And here's what they look like. These are the little vessels. There's an artery on the left, a vein in the middle, and the lymph on the right. And this is how they're built. Now, if your lymph system and your lymph chemistry does not have the correct chemicals in it, which is enzymes. This is all built on enzymes. And don't have the enzymes, you don't have any chemistry. Nothing happens. If you have the enzymes, it happens just like that. That's the key, is enzymes. Okay, my friends, when I talk about scary, it's going to get scary. So get ready to get scared. All right. You've seen the dragon in the desert a zillion times. If you've been following me, you've seen it over and over and over. And people say, oh, you keep showing the same thing. Well, as soon as people start paying attention, it begins to be spoken about in open. I'm going to keep doing this. This is a gigantic dragon. His name was Typhon. Totally recorded in history. And here he is, not outlined. There's his red flaring eye, and he spit all this stuff down at a giant fish, all recorded in history. And here's the giant fish right here. And here's the dragon spitting this stuff down at him. And the dragon runs all the way down here, all the way across North Africa. And that's exactly what they said. They said when he stood up, his head often brushed the stars. He was an offspring of Gaia and Tartarus. And he was a monster, and this is all real. Now, listen to what the ancient or the indigenous Indians had to say about a great dragon and a monster. And then talk about Revelations and the great red dragon and Quetzalcoatl. I could show you all of these things. So don't forget, that's Typhon. That's the fish, and I believe it was Venus personified. I have giants, several of them, and 2 of them are DNA certified. This is a hair follicle from a very large giant. That is where the erector muscle locked in. This side here is the sebaceous gland. There's the hair shaft. There's the root. And there's the 2 spots at the bottom. Now it's a flat-sided hair, so it's a curly-haired person. Maybe they were all curly-haired at one time. I have no idea. But this was, and this is about 500-ish times bigger than us. So these giants were extremely real. They were written about in every single culture. Quetzalcoatl was real. They were all over the place. It wasn't just 1 or 2 or 3. They were everywhere. And here he is, and here he is right here. And that is right on the east coast of the United States. He runs all up the east coast. And here's the feathers way up the other end of the east coast. You see them? Now, these things were not just made to scare kids. This is reality, this is truth, and it's scary. And the indigenous Indians had the same story. The dragon rises. This is in quotes. It's prophesied in our instructions that the end of the world would be near when the trees start dying from the tops down. That's what the maples are doing today. And now this goes back a number of years. I don't remember when, but our instructions say this Yucatan time will come when there will be no corn, nothing will grow in the garden, water will be filthy and unfit to drink, and a great monster will rise up from the water and destroy mankind. This is from American Indian prophecies. All right, so that's not in the Bible. That's not. They all had the same story about giants and dragons, and everybody had the same story. They had their giants too. And I'm pointing to Jesus Christ now because I see all of this stuff is real, and he came to warn us. He said, this is serious. And of course they killed him. And as he was coming in, they came after him. They said, teacher, rebuke your disciples. And he answered, if they remain silent, the very stones will cry out. And they have. And I'm telling you right now, I got messages. You can laugh if you want, but I got the message. It said, go in the woods, there's something calling your name. I said, well, I woke up in the morning, I said to my wife, something in the woods calling my name. I go out there, and, not that exact day, but within a day or two, I found giant human beings. And I knew they were, there's no question. And when I came back to look it up, it said, these things are for you to see and for others as a test. It just popped right up like that. And I said, whoa, these things are for you to see and for others as a test. And I no reason for that to pop up, absolutely none. And it was gone. I could never figure out where it came from. So I decided, well, if this is a test, it's a test. And I found out that literally nobody passed the test. They just couldn't get their heads around this. The only ones that did wanted to use it to show that the Earth was flat, and which caused my research to be laughed at. Because the Earth is not flat. Please don't do that. This is, the Earth, you can see it's a sphere, and it was written about as a sphere. It may have been flat at one time. I can't discount that. But it's certainly not flat now. Now, I can't account for the size of these creatures and all of that stuff, but this is what caused, they used that, weaponized that against my research to make me look silly. And it worked perfect. So I'm still unheard because I've been put in a box that only if you believe that will they show my stuff to you. It seems that that's the way. And then all these people hate me because I won't sign on to that, and I'm never going to sign on to that. So, I know about the space, I know about the space stations, and I know about that we are up on Mars. There's a lander on Mars, a Curiosity sent back, all of this stuff. Mars was the same as Earth, and Mars was destroyed at the same time as Earth was almost destroyed because of Venus being ejected from Jupiter. And it's all written in history. Velikovsky did all this research. This is what kills me. I keep going over and over and over, and nobody listens. Very, very distressing. You see this? The woman and the dragon. Revelations. The great red dragon came to eat the baby, but the baby was swooped away and stored for a time and a half, something like that, in the wilderness. And this is exactly what happened with Zeus. And Zeus was the god of this solar system. We have to understand all of this and put it in perspective because these things were real. And he was the one that went against God's command of don't screw around with the women. He had sex with everybody. And then they had the giants, and then him, Zeus, Jupiter, the same guy, ejected Venus from his planetary body, and Venus almost hit Earth, made the great hot water flood that cooked all of the mud fossils and created all these silicates, which is another thing that I fully understand now because I studied all this stuff. I understand the chemistry and understand the history that Velikovsky recorded. Venus, and everybody in the world, all the cultures had the same story. Venus almost hit Earth. It went by Earth, smashed dead nuts right into Mars, and scraped right across Mars, and then Mars was absolutely killed. Mars is the god of war. And apparently Zeus decided, well, this stuff's got to end, all these wars and all these monsters and dragons and all this stuff, and he swept it down to wipe it out. And it did. It caused the Earth to basically, well, actually even Yale agrees with this. It was a flash flood worldwide, and all the creatures that were there's no more of them like them anymore. There were a lot, well, not every one of them, but there was all kinds. And she said some of them are bizarre. This is the one from Yale that wrote the paper on perfectly preserved mud fossils. And it's one layer worldwide. It's no question about it. Only they put it like 550 million years ago. Velikovsky puts it at 1500 BC. That's 3,500 years ago or so. And it makes sense because everything after that falls into sea peoples that just arrived from, so nobody knows where they came from. They must have somehow survived. And then they came and tried to, they were the Atlanteans, I believe. This gets very, very deep. This is layer after layer after layer. But if you don't understand right from the get-go that all of this stuff was real, all of these giants and monsters and dragons and angels and demons and, it's Gaia is a living creature, or I believe is dead now, and or is very, very close. And And this signals the end of the world as far as I'm concerned. And it's right down the street. I'm sorry, that's just the way I see it.